Hello everyone. Welcome to another IFSCA live. Hello, Gladman. Now is that you? Is that Michael? So I just want to name that something fell in my right eye when I was walking my dog. So hopefully that won't bother me too much. But if it keeps bothering me, I'll have to leave and go to the doctor to see what's up with that. The plan for today is to talk about the major major paradigms of the IFS model. After we talk about that, then we're going to have a conversation. If there are questions, then we'll talk about them. So there are three major paradigms in the IFS model. And I think it's helpful to understand what they are and how they impact IFS. Number one is multiplicity of mind. So if you've taken an IFS course, that will be pretty obvious to you, right? Most of us grew up within a paradigm of one mind. And IFS understands that we are actually multiple. These different parts, they're not just language that we use, that they actually map on to something real inside of us, that we are actually made up of parts. Now, that understanding is not new. If you look at the history of Western thought, multiple thinkers see our minds as being multiple. For example, a philosopher that I'm familiar with, that I've studied a lot, which is Plato, the ancient Greek philosopher. He already had a concept of our minds being multiple, and he had a concept of a self that was the internal leader of the mind. So if you read the Republic of Plato, that's basically what he's talking about there. Unfortunately, if people don't have this understanding that comes from IFS, as they read Plato, they're going to read a whole bunch of stuff there. But if you're well versed in IFS, you read the Republic, it's like, oh my God, he's talking about the same thing here. Hi, Donna. Hello. Yes, I saw your email. We'll get to that in a little bit. Donna just sent a message saying that she had sent questions in the email. So multiplicity of mind, right? We are multiple. If you look at the work of developmental biologist Michael Levin, he's actually studying minds, basically, but from a biological perspective. So he gets little organisms and puts them in a setting where they have to make choices, and sees whether they're like making novel choices on how to get to a specific outcome. So an interesting thing that they did was I don't know how to explain the details of this, but they removed the skin cells of toad embryos, and just those cells reassembled into a new organism. And those cells, as a new organism, actually had choices that they made. And the interesting thing is, the cells of the toad embryo, they had never functioned in the world as an organism with its own agenda until that experiment was made. But what they found is that if they put the building blocks of those cells in the environment, they start to swirl around and around until they form a new organism just like them. So just those skin cells that are around the embryo that would keep the embryo as a unit, those are learning how to replicate themselves. I mean, and so they get and they do that, and so that tells us that they have some type of mind that's doing that. So what they have done is they have learned how to communicate with cells, what the language is, and they found that cells use this bioelectric signal to communicate. And so now they're doing a bunch of experiments where they send messages, bioelectrical messages, and they see results. So, for example, they will tell the toad embryo, build a third eye here. And then the toad is born with 3 eyes, not 2, which is amazing. Just like that signal, that message, right, which is like information is being sent and something is happening. So they're figuring out how to communicate with those levels of mind. And so Michael Levin, he sees actually the whole world as being composed of mind stuff. And he says we can do experiments to prove that, and they're in the process of doing that. But he says actually what we are is like we're little minds that would get together and they form a bigger mind that get together and form a bigger mind and get together and form a bigger mind. So that's multiplicity in the literal sense, from the ground up. That's the understanding of some developmental biologists, that it is very current, present day scientific understanding. Now, from that perspective, we are starting to understand that actually what we are is not just minds, but systems of minds that come together. And then that takes us to the second major paradigm in IFS, which is systems thinking. So for the past few decades, a bunch of people have started to think about what systems are and what the qualities of a system are, and to understand the problems that systems usually face, how to interact with systems, how to change systems, and how to look at things at the system level. And it's a complex conversation, but systems, they are usually nested, right? So that's an important understanding for us in IFS. So they are nested, meaning that you can have a system within a system within a system within a system, right? So for example, you have in your gut a system, right? So a mixture of bacteria and other living organisms that help you digest food. And that is a system within the larger system that we are. And we are a system within a larger system of the family, that is a larger system in the city, that is within the larger system of the society, that's in the larger system of the earth, that is in the larger system of the solar system, that is in the larger system of the galaxy, and so on and so forth. So nested systems, one within the other. Someone said that my sound is breaking up. Is my sound breaking up for everyone or just for Michael? Can you hear me okay? Please give me some feedback if my audio is okay. It could just be you, Michael. So, yeah, so Donna says, I hear fine. Kelly says, static. Wise Insight says, yes. I don't know what that means. Yes, like, yes, problems in the audio. There is an issue with the audio. Okay, let's see what we can do with this. Let's look at configuration. I've never had to troubleshoot the audio as I'm going through this. Okay, can hear you fine, good here. Okay, so different people having different experiences. It could be that there's something on your end. Hopefully this is clear enough. Okay, a little static, but okay. Okay. So let's hope that that's good enough, because I don't know how to fix this. I have to read more into that. Okay, so I was, if this is horrible and you cannot understand me, please let me know. Please, oh, okay. Eventually, I cannot hear a word or phrase. So maybe if I bring the microphone closer and turn it and have it face me, maybe this will be better. Okay, so please let me know if this is any better. So nested systems, right? So a system within a system within a system. That is also true for parts. So sometimes when we are getting to know a part and it's an older part, let's say it's a 21-year-old part, you might hear things that, as you hear, you say, oh, that sounds very young. But the story that I'm hearing about is from a 21-year-old. And actually what's happening is there's a 21-year-old part, but that part experienced life as a 21-year-old with that younger part coloring the way that it saw reality. So oftentimes we will find that nested systems within IFS, within our own systems and our parts. Chris is asking if you can turn on captions, or is that Zoom? I think you can turn on captions, Chris. I don't know how to instruct you on how to do that right now, though. Other qualities of systems. Systems, they can be they can be simple systems or they can be complex systems. And what we are is complex systems. So complex doesn't mean complicated. It just means that we are systems that have multiple levels of causality or interaction. So we are biological systems, but we are also psychological systems, right? So we have our body and we also have our minds, and we actually have different levels, right? So there's the level that's just pure physics, chemistry, biology, physiology, and it goes all the way up to our minds and how they work with our parts. So a vitamin deficiency can have an impact on how you feel. One level of the system impacting the other level of the system. What you hear from someone, let's just say someone calls you and says someone has passed away, will have a physiological effect in your body. And so when we work with people, we have to understand that these multiple layers will interact with each other and affect each other. And a good example of this is, let's say when we are working with chronic pain, sometimes we will look at this and look at the level that is physiological. Is there anything that's actually causing the pain? Let's do the exams, talk to the doctors, etc. There's a level of this that could be just like some parts are just creating pain as a protection mechanism. And then you could also have parts that are getting something that is happening in the body that's physiological, that we call that is structural, and they are making it worse. They are increasing the intensity, or they are really making you focus on that. Pay really close attention to how much that is painful or annoying. So it's important to understand that when we are working with people's systems, that they are complex, and it's not just simple and linear, but sometimes we are working with multiple interlocking parts. That is also true when we think about parts. Sometimes we go in and we start to get to know a part, and there is some witnessing, and then in the witnessing, something happens and you cannot finish it. Some other part comes in with some concern, and then you have to shift and do some work with this other part, and maybe even a cluster of parts to clear that, and then you come back to work with this. And so actually, the more IFS you do, the more you realize that each person is unique, and the journey that they go through is unique. And so if you look at the demos and you expect that every single session is going to be linear like the demo is, and beautifully laid out like that, then you're setting yourself up to be frustrated and feeling like you're not good enough. And also you're going to be putting pressure on the client to attend those expectations, to do what you expect should happen in an IFS session. Also, another element of systems thinking that I see happening with our clients is thinking about biological systems. We have homeostasis, right? We have a level of balance that we find, and our systems want to keep that balance. And when something happens that is going to shift the balance into something new, for example, when we are children and we are growing, we go through different phases, and then going through those phases is difficult because we are expanding. In IFS, the same thing happens. Sometimes when you get close to letting go of a burden, it means a big shift for the system. Let's say you hold a burden around, I don't want to go out into the world because it is scary. For some reason, I learned that the world is scary. I'm safer at home. When you're close to letting go of that burden, and now you can maybe start going out into the world more, parts can be concerned about that. What is that going to be like when I don't have the burden anymore and I start going out into the world? You can have the specific burden of the world is scary, but if you don't have that anymore, you might still have parts that are like, do I know how to do that? And you might have new challenges, right? If you have for a while not gone out into the world and had experiences, and now you don't have the burden anymore, and that's an option and it's available. It can be scary for parts to do that. So first paradigm, multiplicity of mind. Second paradigm, systems thinking. I didn't finish the last point of the homeostasis. So when we are working with clients and they are ready to move into an more expanded version of themselves, oftentimes you're going to have parts that are scared about the expansion, scared about the newness, right? And so you might actually have something that sounds like, and maybe even could be classified as a backlash, protectors being afraid. And systems, they also, that's also true. So if you look at systems, let's say when you have, in the family, for example, the family has a culture, right? There's a certain way that we do things in the family. And if a member of the family challenges that and says, hey, I think we should do things differently now, you will see members of the family shutting it down almost every time. If you ask the members of the family, they will give you multiple reasons. But if you look at it fundamentally, what it means is you're going to change how we identify what we are here. This is our culture. This is what we do. And so if you bring this new way of doing things, how am I going to fit in this? Are we still going to exist? There's a whole bunch of concerns about shifting into something new. And those concerns, they happen at every level in every system. The third paradigm is the paradigm of spirituality. And so we understand that as we help parts unburden, joy and compassion become available. And these are aspects that are deep aspects of who we are fundamentally. And so IFS has the view that that is something that connects us to something greater than ourselves. So as we stay with the joy and the compassion, that experience of being joyful and compassionate after parts soften back or after we unburden a part is a experience that can be called spiritual, that is a deeply meaningful experience of wholeness, of presence, of oneness within myself, but also oneness with everything that is at times. And so if you look at the history of spirituality or the history of mysticism, etc., you're gonna find multiple people talking about these same things. For example, in the Zen tradition, they talk about the four immeasurable minds, and basically they're minds of love, which we get to experience once we unburden parts and we go into a more expanded, open-hearted space. So those are the three major paradigms that are found within IFS and that orient IFS in how we do the work: multiplicity of mind, systems thinking, and spirituality. I hope that discussion was helpful to you. If you have any questions, please feel free to post them in the chat. And let me just check, how is the sound? Is it still bad? Okay, so while I wait for more comments, I have an email from Donna. Donna, you said in your email, I have just begun counseling with someone who has a lot of stress right now due to their father being recently put in a home. They and their family have been caring for him for years, but it became impossible. The father says he wants to die if he can't go home. Okay, that's hard for the family to hear. They are perpetually carrying the burden of their loved one's well-being. I'm guessing you're talking about your client, right? Their partner is often depressed, but has never been open to seeing someone. Also hard to deal with. So far, I have been doing a lot of calming practices with them, and they have been helpful. We're at our 4th session in, and I wonder with this person and another one in a similar situation, how I might safely suggest we look at some parts that show up in these situations. Okay, so the email continues, but let me reflect on that first. So you have someone that comes to you and there's a lot of stress. External stress, right? I have to take care of a family member. There's this real hard decision to be made in life, like sending your father to a home to be taken care of there, whereas before you were taking care of your father. I'm guessing this person is probably almost like at the end of their emotional, psychological, maybe even financial resources. So that's hard. When there is external stress, it will have an impact in our system. Remember, it's external stress impacts how our systems function. This is part of the thing we talked about last week. So should we do IFS with someone like this? My answer is yes. Why? The situation, the present day situation, is very stressful. The nature of this situation is stressful. But what we know from IFS is that as we go through this present moment experience, the burdens that we carry from the experiences in the past and the strategies that we develop to deal with them are going to come up and make it even harder for us to deal with the present day situation. So one invitation that I might make to a client like that is to say, client, I'm aware that there's something really big happening in your life right now that's really stressful for you. What I know about working with my clients is that oftentimes, even though this thing is happening right now and it's big, things that happened in the past color and make this even more difficult. Now, one thing that we could do is we could check and see if there are parts that are holding stuff from the past and making this harder for you right now. And we can help those parts because what's in the past is in the past, and we can help clear that. And then once we do that, then we will have more space and calm to look at what's happening now and make a self-led decision. Would you like to do that? If the client says yes, great. We just follow that and look at what parts are coming up around it. So let's say the client says, there's this anxiety in my gut, about this decision that I have to make, and I feel so bad and so guilty about doing it. And I wake up in the morning and I feel really depressed. Right? So we have three things already: anxiety in the gut, guilty, depressed. We can name those parts, check which one wants the attention first, start doing the work. That's one option. The other option is, client, you're having to make a big decision here. Would you like to listen to all of the parts that are coming up in your system? Listen to them so that you can make a self-led decision. Now, this decision you're going to make very likely won't make everyone happy in the system, but at least it can make them feel better if you make the decision after having heard them and them feeling like they have been understood by you. Would you like to do that? And if the client says yes, then you say, okay, what are all the parts that are pro sending your father to this place that's going to take care of him? What are all the parts that are against doing that? Just map all of them, and then which one wants to be heard first, and then you listen to each part until it's like, yes, you get it. That's what it is. Okay, great. Thank you for sharing this with me. Is it okay? Is it okay if I listen to the other ones? And then you go and you listen to the other one and the other one, and then as you go through this process, oftentimes a self-led decision, what is the right way to go, becomes clear. Well, Donna is saying there is no decision to be made. He has already been admitted. Yes, but it could be that if the client is still feeling bad about it, that parts, it happened, but maybe the internal decision hasn't been made. So that's what you got to be clear. Like, is the whole system a yes for father being admitted? If the whole system is a yes for father being admitted, okay, no problem. But if this is still stressful, if parts are still saying, I'm a bad son for taking care of, for doing this to my father, then you have parts that are like, we need to have him admitted, and parts that say, I'm bad for doing that. And then you have a polarization, which means that maybe you don't have a self-led decision. So Donna, how is that landing for you? I gave you a couple of options of how to go about that, and then you said this: I am hesitant. Right. So the question was, how might I safely suggest we look at some parts that show up in these situations? Then you say, I am hesitant because some people have come to see me because of repeated relationship issues they have had. And when they begin to talk about how they are showing up, and that this is a part, they sound defensive. Okay, so I'm guessing that you're naming that as parts, and they're becoming defensive, right? So far, I haven't been able to neatly and gently catch this so they can even be okay with the defensive part. I have felt this all in my own sessions with my IFS therapist, but I don't know how to navigate the water to make it easier for people. So this is not super clear to me what you mean. But it's what I'm picking up is it sounds like there is something that is happening for your clients that is similar to what's happening for you in your own process. So that can be a little confusing to get those things mixed. But if I'm talking to a client and I'm naming something as a part and they become defensive, I can do one of two things. If I have a good enough relationship with the client, I can just say, client, are you noticing how a part of you is responding in a way that, maybe it sounds like the way that this is being named is not landing well for that part, or there's something about this that feels a little scary or dangerous to be seen in that way, or maybe there's a part is responding to maybe not understanding well the situation, what's happening to you. Do you notice any parts like that is having a response like this? And if the client says yes, okay, can we get to know that part? So that's one thing. The other thing is, if you don't have a good enough relationship with this client just yet, maybe that's the thing you need to do. You need to develop a better relationship with a client before you start naming parts for them. Especially if they have not come to you to do IFS work. If they have come to you for IFS work, you could say, it sounds like naming things as parts in your system doesn't feel good. Is there a different way that we can talk about these different things that happen inside for you that's maybe not parts? And then maybe sometimes it's just the language, right? They don't like the word parts for some reason. They like this side of you or this piece of you or something like that. Also, it could be that for some clients, naming parts in them is like blaming them for something. Like there's this part of you that's doing this, and so it's your fault what's happening in the relationship. It's not the other person's fault. And it can be helpful to just name, we're not here to blame or shame any parts in your system. All we want to do is we want to get to know them and hear the story. And, even though we might find something and say, oh, there's a part of you that feels that way, that part might be completely legitimate in feeling that way, and you might have a lot of wisdom, and you might have a very good reason for feeling that way and doing what it does. And we just want to talk to it and get to know it so that it doesn't feel alone in having to take care of that issue by itself. That's all we want to do. We want to get to know it and help it in whatever way we can. So it's not that we're going to send it away, we're going to say that it's wrong, we're going to blame it for anything. It's just we want to have a conversation, that's all. So I guess basically what I'm saying is you want to check like what the concern is. So when something is happening here, what's the concern? What's making this relationship, this environment, this process, etc., less safe for you? And then the third point in your email, and then Donna said, Bingo. So it sounds like that last one lands for you, Donna. The third part of the email says, I have been seeing this person since November, and we have exiles waiting. Each time they approach, something happens, and they feel like it is not the time to go there. I am grateful for the clarity and ask what their part might be thinking would happen if we go there. Okay, good. There has not been much of a response to that. There has not been much of a response. So in IFS, whenever you get like nothing happens or there's no response, that is not actually true. There is something happening. You're just not catching what is the thing that's happening. And oftentimes, when it feels like there's no response, the response is dissociation or blankness or numbness or something that is taking the client out somehow. So what this could be, even before I finish reading that part, Donna, this could be a preverbal part that's coming up. It could be that there's a very little one that doesn't even have language that's coming up and doing something whenever you try to go there. It could be, I don't know. And then you say, I am beginning to think it might be a UB. That's a possibility. I have taken the advanced weekend, and so I have seen Kay Gardner and Bob Faulkner talk about their protocol. Okay, I have also taken in more of Bob's training. Good. I actually feel prepared to go there with their system when their system allows it. How would you advise proceeding to ensure safety? My advice would be just stay curious. Stay curious and slow down. The moment that it happens, right? So what you're saying, Donna, is there is something happening over and over and over and over. Every time you go there, something happens. That moment that something happens, you want to slow down. When it happens, say, oh, good, here it is again. Let's slow down and let's look at this. What are you noticing? What's your body doing? No reaction? What lets you know it's no reaction? Does it feel like a wall that comes? Does it feel like that part goes away, like in the distance? Does it feel like your mind goes blank? What is that experience like? Just notice. And then as you notice, what you're doing is like you're fleshing this out a little bit, and then you could try direct access. Donna says, I recall that she has said that she thinks she will be overwhelmed. Yes, it is likely could be preverbal. Her heart is in her throat, and she feels like it is going to be too much. Okay. So that's more information. Good, Donna. So as I hear that, I'm not thinking UB. I'm thinking young exile. Exiles that are formed in the early stages of life, they experience life and everything in life as being either life or death, right? If they don't eat, they could die. If they're too cold, they could die. If they're too hot, they could die. If it's too much noise, so whatever is too much and it's like big, absolute big, it could be early, very, very early life. So one thing we want to do is when we are there, we say, as your heart is in your throat and it feels like it's going to be too much, is it okay to be with this? And then client, I just want you to remember you're an adult and it's not actually happening here right now. This thing that you're experiencing is a memory. This is a part sharing information with you about what it was like back then. And this part has been able to hold on to this for all of these years. All that we are doing is we are bringing your present day adult self to witness what it's like. Are you able to be present for that part in that way? So we are inviting them to do the witnessing, to be present for that part, right? And we just slow down. If it is too much, we could even do the direct access with the part that is bringing the information that is overwhelming. And I would do something like, hey, part, I'm so glad you're here. is it okay if I talk to you? I just want to let you know we are aware of you. We want to get to know you. And there are other parts in the system that are getting scared with the bigness. I'm not scared of how big it is, and that's totally okay with me. But can you just pull back a little bit, give the client a little bit of space, and then share a little bit at a time so that the client can really listen to you? And I promise you, we can keep coming back for as long as you need until you feel satisfied that you've shared everything you have to share. Is it okay? If even that is not okay, then it could mean that the part is trying to share how intense it was. And so you might say something like, client, it sounds like the part is really sharing big. Do you get how big this is? I do. Let the part know. How is it responding now? Other things that might help is the part aware of you. Client, let the part sense into you and notice how big you are now. Just be with the part in whatever we need you to be with it. All of these self to part, part to self, and orienting, updating, etc. Interventions might be very helpful at that moment with that client. How's that landing for you, Donna? Okay, so Callie says, let me see if I missed anything here. Okay, Donna says extremely helpful. Great. I'm glad, Donna. Kelly says, can you speak on inner critics, concept of inner critical committee? I have several clients that are so critical towards themselves. It's so intense. It is causing severe fear, anxiety, panic on inside. Okay. So inner critic. So inner critic is connected to shame. In our system, we have our exiles that feel shameful, and we have the protectors that use shame. So they shame us to try to do a certain type of job. So that's the category that inner critics fall under, the shaming parts in our system. The problem with the critic is, as the critic shames the system to try to make the system less shameful, it has the opposite effect, and it makes the system feel more shameful. So it kind of backfires, and it's kind of like a negative loop. But the reason why inner critics they get their jobs in the system is, imagine this: if you're doing something and one of your caregivers or maybe a classmate comes and criticizes you for doing that, you feel intense shame. Then a part comes in and says, a manager comes in and says, I'm actually going to try to be better next time to avoid that intense shame because that was too much. I don't want to feel that again. So the part tries to shame internally so that you can get better, so that you can avoid doing that, so it never feels that intensity of shame again. So it's kind of, it's trying to, yeah, it's kind of like a vaccine, right? It's like giving you a little bit of the shame so that you can get better and avoid the big shame. And many times it's better for you to shame yourself than for your parent to shame yourself. The intensity is less when you are shaming yourself. Of course, the issue is as we grow up, sometimes we leave our homes or the environments where we grow up, and that shame, that external shame is not there anymore. The threat of the external shame is not there anymore, but our protectors, they took on their jobs and they're not aware. They haven't been updated. They're not needed anymore, or not that intensely anymore. And the exiles are still there holding the shamefulness. So we work with them like we would work with any other part. First of all, we need to understand they have a good intention, right? And if we are angry at our clients' critics, then we're not going to be able to bring curiosity to them and say, hey, I really want to get to know you and understand how come you do this so much and so intensely. When we talk to them, eventually you will realize that they have a good intention and they are reasonable. So you can ask them questions like, hey, what is your intention? Well, I want the client to be better so that the client doesn't feel that shamefulness anymore. Okay, protector, how long have you been doing that? 16 years. Okay. And is it helping the client be better? Well, it's helping a little bit. Okay. And is it helping the client not feel the shame inside, the shamefulness inside? Well, not really. Okay. Is it okay if we try to do this in a different way? How about if we can go to the exile and clear the shame so that the client can really focus on developing without worrying about that? Would that be okay? So that's one thing. The other thing is, in my relationship, we can offer self energy to the client, right? And so with these clients, if there's a lot of shame in their system, what I want to do is I want to offer the opposite of what the shame was. So they got criticism, they're going to get validation and positive reinforcement from me, but not fake, superficial. What I'm going to do is every time I notice, hey, there's self energy, there's something good and beautiful that they're doing here, I'm just going to highlight it. An example is, well, I'm noticing this intense shame and it's like going through my whole body and it's buzzing and I really just want to hide. That's a part that's coming up. I might say to the client, wow, that's a lot of clarity. You're really able to notice how that part is showing up in your system right now. Did you notice that? Just that little bit of like highlighting the goodness of what the client is doing, even though it feels like, well, I'm just feeling this intense shame. I'm turning the client towards, yes, and so much clarity about the shame right now, huh? Brings a little bit of a sense of pride in the client. Oh, I'm doing this well. I'm noticing my shame really well. Yes, you are. Great. You're noticing your shame really well. You're really good at noticing your shame. You have a lot of clarity. And you have some courage. You're really looking at this right now. You could be avoiding it. You're looking at this. So you have clarity and you have courage. Wow. And so that can start to chip away at the shame even before we unburden that exile. How is that landing for you so far, Kelly? Okay, Kelly says, oh, thank you for reminding me to name self-energy. So good. I am not angry. I am noticing their whole system is angry. Okay, yeah. Their whole the whole system is angry at the critical part, right? So what you have here is a polarization. So you could set that up as a polarization. Hey, critical part and parts that help the critical part sit on this side of the table. Parts that are angry at the critical part sit on this side of the table. Let's listen to them. And with polarizations, what we do is we listen to both sides, and we want to listen enough that their good intention comes to the surface so that they can listen to each other's good intentions and be like, oh, we are on the same boat. We want the same thing for the client. Donna says, I saw you determine it wasn't a UB when I said they had physical sensations from the part. Is that right? So I cannot tell you for sure that it's not a UB. You can keep that as a hypothesis and stay curious about it. But the way that UBs show up is often they will be one-dimensional and mean and just repeat the same thing over and over again. They will have no good intention. When you ask, is it a part of the system? You get no. But to be able to even know that whether it's a UB or not, you would have to have enough conversation with the part to know. And it sounds like the thing you were telling me feels more like some part that's dissociating for some reason, which sounds like a protector, and then a part that's going to bring something that's going to be too much that sounds like an exile. But you have to stay curious. Like I'm just giving you my gut feeling, but you staying curious with the client is really what's going to bring you to the right place. Michael says, makes me think to include noticing aspects of my C's showing up when I am doing who's here check-ins. Oh, Michael, that's a great idea. Yes. So when you begin your check-in with your parts daily, you could just begin with that. What aspects of my self-energy are here? Oh, my agency is here. I decided to do this. Oh, and I want to do it. Yes, I want, and I feel capable. Yes, I decided I want to do it, and I feel capable to do this. I'm noticing my body and my system, so there is some clarity there. Yeah, I'm feeling calm. I don't feel like I have to rush this. I feel like I can take my time doing it. I'm feeling somewhat confident. There's a little bit of confidence, noticing, not completely confident, but some confidence that I can do this. Oh, and my compassion towards myself seems to be blocked. Interesting. Okay, something blocking my compassion towards myself today. Okay. Okay, so hey guys, I'm here. Does anybody need my attention today? Right, so it could look something like that, Michael. Just an example, right? The way you do it doesn't have to be the way that I do it. So coming back to Donna's question, Donna says, the part did say you can't help. So a part saying you can't help might mean multiple things. It might just mean hopelessness. It might mean like, oh, there's nothing to be done here. There's nothing that you can do to help. I would just stay curious. Ask the part to tell you what lets you know that you cannot help, right? And then you follow that. Okay, so we are coming towards the end of the time we have today. I want to thank everyone so much for your participation. This is always fun when you send messages in the chat. I will see you all again next Monday at the same time. Kelly says, thank you, Gustavo. I hope your eye is okay. Yes, me too. But I think I'm going to go to the eye doctor and see what's up with this because I'm still feeling something there. If you have other questions, you can send them to my email, gustavo.alps@gmail.com. And I will see you next time. Bye-bye, everyone.